everybody was like, you're the amazing mom. I don't feel amazing. It was shameful for me not to have that 3 months maternity leave like everybody else did. I had to go give my baby up after a month.
Look, motherhood, I think, is a journey and a big lesson in letting go. And if you're just joining us, we are talking all things parenting in the modern world, motherhood, and especially regaining and reclaiming your identity after being a mom. I am an empty nester officially this year. My daughter is in university. My son is in grade 8, off to boarding school. And, you know, when I felt pregnant at 20, I thought it's cute to tell everyone that, you know, by 40, I'll be an empty nester. And now I'm turning 40 and I'm like, so where to from here? But Shaz, you're not a mom. You're a dog mom, though, but you're a super aunt.
I am a super aunt, and it also just goes back to, you know, being childless by choice. Purely because I have a fear around motherhood because of how I grew up. My whole entire family is made of matriarchs and women that have had to hold the fort without men, whether because they left or passed away. And so I don't want that for myself. So I'm looking forward to us talking about how your experience is motherhood, because maybe I might change my mind. I'm 32, so the eggs are still good.
Baby. Look, the relationship with moms and the childhood trauma that comes, because we talk a lot about, you know, absent dads, or we talk a lot about delinquent dads, but now we're starting to see a rise in us talking about complicated relationships with our moms. I've certainly been vocal about it, and we're working on it, thank God. Michelle, my girlfriend Mish, I didn't know you had such a story about your relationship with your mom.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit.
Yeah, so basically, I grew up without a dad. My dad passed when I was 4.
Yeah.
And my mom was around, but she was a full-blown alcoholic. And we were raised by different people in and out of houses. And, you know, as a child, you pick up your parents' behaviors, or the people that you are around, surrounded with behaviors. And it was kind of like I was in fight or flight, you know, raised by different people. I was actually raised by an African mother as well. I lived in and out of people's houses. And I think just because of that, being in fight and flight, I didn't really deal with that. And then I became a single mom as well.
Yeah.
You know, and it was up to me to work through the process, not to continue with what has happened to me.
Yeah.
And, you know, it was a very long, hard, painful journey. But when my child was born, I said, what can I do for myself as a mother and for my child not to go through the same things? Because we tend to pick up that patterns. We tend to pick up the wrong guys, you know.
Yeah, the generational curse kind of continues.
I've kissed
you
so many
mimic what
frogs,
you've seen.
and eventually after the last frog I said, hold on, you repeating a pattern here?
Yeah.
And I stopped and I'm like, there is a reason why I'm doing this. So it was working very deep within myself and not repeating that. So I did repeat it, but then eventually I thought,
You wised up.
another frog coming.
I'm the common denominator.
Yeah, and I thought there was something wrong with me, but it wasn't with them, but it wasn't them, it was me. It was the stuff that I attracted that I've learned from childhood.
And someone who is a super mom, and even her Instagram handle is Josie Mom. I remember when I met you at a, you know, Joburg Society event, I was like, oh, you're fabulous, girl. You're like, you're fabulous. And then we followed each other because, you know, that's what we do, right?
Fabulosity.
You know?
Yeah, exactly.
There's no time for hate.
Like attracts, and that's why I say, you know, you create your circle of influence.
Right.
And that's it, you know. I think that's how you grow as women.
And I'm like, you're just so fabulous, like, oh, Mrs. South Africa 2022, and you're like, everything, even your pinned post, like this gold outfit and the beautiful hair and the handsome husband and the 2 boys. I'm like, oh, that is so sweet. How did she get it right?
Where does the name Josie Mom come from?
Well, I love Josie because Johannesburg.
Okay.
And at the time I created the profile, and this is where I think social media can be deceptive.
Yeah.
Because if you just kept on scrolling and scrolling back, let's go 3 years. I'm not the woman you see sitting here today.
I did scroll, then
Same
you're not.
woman, but a completely different outlook on life. My head was just above water. And so there was a massive shift in my life, but I think it stemmed from my journey through motherhood. Always been a very driven woman from very young. My grandmother, again, you know, we're talking generational. She was an orphan through World War II. Long story there. And so looking at her, you know, I was like, I have to be driven. I need to have my own job, must have my own car. And so from 13, I started working. I produced my first fashion show. I was 13 years old.
Okay, girl.
Yeah. That's why I sound like, guys, I've had 30 years in events and marketing, and it's true because I really was. I wrote, I was emceeing the day before my matric biology exam. That was the type of really driven person I was. Out of school, university, working at the same time, married my husband. I was young, I was 23 years old. And we had this like, you know, we'll have a 2-year plan for motherhood.
Yeah.
5 years starts to come around and we're not a mother yet. And that's when, you know, the first...
You start getting worried.
You start getting worried and that's when, you know, we start to go down the fertility road. And really at that time, and I think as a woman, we can stretch ourselves a lot. I know I was a type A personality. I'm sure that resonates with a lot of people. Time urgent, very demanding on myself. Like I was my worst critic. And so, you know, I was, and I don't feel like I needed to impress people. I needed to impress myself. And so yeah, that's how it happened. And we went through the fertility route and eventually we did fall pregnant. But the gynae at the time said, listen here, you will not fall pregnant.
Why?
In this same environment that you've created for yourself. Your noradrenaline levels are so high, you are in that fight and flight mode. And
so your body's just not producing anything.
No, your body can't do this. You're not, you are navigating at such a high level, it's not going to happen. And he really said to me at that stage, you're going to have to make a choice. It's going to be your career or it's going to be motherhood.
Can you imagine?
And that was a hard pill for me to swallow because I was independent. I was like, if I wanted those lashes done or whatever the case is,
and
nails,
this is what you know.
Exactly.
I feel like that's me right now. Like,
I could go. I didn't, you know, I didn't have to ask permission. I didn't have to ask somebody for money to do that. I could do it.
Yeah.
And so it would be a big sacrifice because now I would need to be like, okay, hold on, there's a budget.
You gotta cool the jets a little bit.
Or someone saying like lashes again.
You know what I'm saying? Like this, looking at that appointment schedule, like, what is this exactly? What doctor is this? And so, you know, that's what happened with me. And so we had my son and I did give up my career and I went wholeheartedly into motherhood. It was something that I really wanted. My son's 2.5 years old. I have my second son and we start to see some traits. Shortly after that, he's diagnosed on the autism spectrum. It's not something I was expecting. And I think, you know, I had to take a step back and go, okay, hold on. You know, the thoughts of me like, okay, having the kiddies and then going back into my career might need to be put on hold right now. And I remember sitting inside the doctor's rooms when he was first diagnosed and she said a few things. And, you know, one of them was, you know, expect nothing. And the big one that was for me was lower your expectations as a mother.
As Joe is talking, I am reminded about my own journey through pregnancy and how, as a first-time mom, there was just so much uncertainty, not knowing when to get where and how. And what I love about Profmed is that they have this Tums to Tots program, which is dedicated to new moms that journeys with you right along your journey from pregnancy to when your baby is a tot. And it gives you access to medical professionals. It gives you access to reminders that tell you, you know, it's time to check your blood pressure or it's time to go for that vaccination. And I think more than anything, it just gives you peace of mind knowing that you're not going through this journey alone, having to figure it out by yourself, but rather that there is a dedicated partner in the Profmed Tums to Tots program.
And as a mother, that's a very hard thing to hear. You know, like you have these, I don't know, it's like your baby comes out and you're like, oh, you know, tennis player.
Yes, you can't wait for the milestones also.
Yes, you know, and I remember like my husband and their surname is Wilson. So, you know, there's tennis rackets called Wilson. And I was like, okay, yeah, we're going to have a tennis player. And, you know, but we were going to have to now lower these expectations. And I thought to myself, you know, okay, fine. But what I'm not going to do is I'm going to raise, well, I'm not going to lower my expectations of motherhood. I'm going to raise my expectations. I'm going to become fully invested. You know, I studied, I went on courses, we engaged with therapists, and we really went deep into therapy with him. Along that process, I lost myself. Now, I can never say I would take it back. My son is an incredible young man, but I completely and utterly lost myself. And it is scary to look back to see how quickly that happened. and how little energy I would put back into myself, because all of my energy was being put into my children. And I almost became so self-sacrificial that it was
And then
like,
there's like nothing left.
there is
to
nothing
pour
left
from
to
an
pour.
empty
There was
cup, yeah.
nothing left to pour. And that was where I was 3 years ago, call it.
How did you recognize you'd lost yourself? Because it's such a gradual process.
Yes.
You know, it happens so slowly. And as you're speaking, I think back to my own journey of, you know, being a young mom and having that be my identity, and, you know, being a wife and wearing that with pride. And then after I got divorced and my kids went to live with their dad, I literally went into a depression. Like, I packed up, went to the US for 6 months. Of course, Instagram looked like I'm living my best life in Atlanta, but there'd be days where I'm in my pajamas and I haven't even showered. I don't want to get out of bed, and I will post like a throwback, for instance, but I'm dying inside. So when did you realize, at what moment did you either look in the mirror or you're, I don't know, throwing laundry in the machine and you're like, is this my life?
It was sitting at school one day, and I don't even know what teen therapy session it was. One kid was in therapy, the other one somewhere else. And I remember just sitting there, and I was like, is this it? Is this it? And I had this feeling of failure, actually. I had this feeling of, how was I so successful when I was younger? And now I'm sitting here, and I wasn't registering the success of bringing my children up at that moment.
Right.
And that wasn't in my mind. My mind was...
Your benchmark was the
My
successful
benchmark
me.
was the success, this corporate woman, this career that I was driving towards, and I'm sitting here and I look down at what I was wearing, and I'm like, it's jeans, it's sneakers, I don't even know what top this is. I was like, I don't even want to look at my face, because I remember I had started to say things into the mirror that I wouldn't say to another woman. You know what I'm saying?
You were,
Like really
hard on
hurtful
yourself.
things, you know. And it was at that moment, and I remember phoning my mom, and I was like, I have to change. I have to do something right now. She gave me the name of a coach, a woman empowerment coach, and she was like, you're going to phone her now. And I remember phoning her, and we often speak about this conversation, because it was really a turning point in my life. And I said to her, I don't know what it is. I don't know how to explain myself right now, but something has got to give. And I actually realized it's me. Something has to change, and I have to change. My circumstances are not going to change.
You're still a mom.
You're still a mom. You know?
Going to be a mom for a while.
Exactly,
Yes.
and I have to learn to cope with all of this, and I had been, you know, I could see the growth in my children, and everybody was like, you're the amazing mom, you know, and I was like, but I don't.
But inside,
I don't feel
empty.
amazing. And somebody asked me, they were like, what are your hobbies? And I was like, huh?
I don't remember.
I don't know.
What are you talking about?
What do I do?
Is that?
Play dates, soccer, cricket.
And they were like,
Carpool.
exactly. Like, I was like, I don't know what I love to do anymore. And they were like, well, what are your favorite foods?
Whatever my children have left over.
Exactly. Precisely.
That's the scary part, right? Because I think I've lived this whole life of mine worrying about myself, and I think that's why I got a dog, because I got to a point in my life and I'm really selfish. Let me try taking care of something. And maybe, Michelle, I want to ask you, coming into motherhood and having experience being raised by, you know, a single mom with absent father figures, for someone like me, did you find it as if you were giving yourself over into motherhood? I think that's one thing that scares me, that I'm going to lose who I am if I dive into motherhood. Can I balance that? What does the balance look like?
Yeah, I think it's very, very important, you know, and I know we don't do this before motherhood, to look at your own childhood, to see what you've been through in your own childhood. Because once your child is here, you will relive those moments. You know, and when my baby was born, I actually don't take any alcohol because of what I've been through. I don't drink at all. There was periods where I did drink, but it felt like I'm bringing my past back. And, you know, and I think it's also having your child, you're going through regrets. You've got that remorse of, my child doesn't have a father now. The remorse of, I'm not a good enough mother. You know, you feel like you're walking in shame every day, because now you've got this baby. And I see my clients are more and more younger mothers having their babies. And they have this regret of, they say to me, Michelle, I don't have a baby daddy. You know, I have to do this on my own. And, you know, it's to also work through your past, because whether we like it or not, the older you become, the more it will come and nibble on you, and you'll put it back in the bottle and you'll just say, not today.
Deal with this.
And then another trigger happens and it will come up and you'll say, and then you reach me by late 40s, it will always come back and nibble on you until you actually sit down and say, right, how do we deal with this, or go for professional help.
Yeah.
But for me, it was, I always walked in shame with my baby. It was it was shameful for me to be a single mom. It was shameful for me not to have that 3 months maternity leave like everybody else did. I had to go give my baby up after a month.
Why?
Because I had to work. There was no income money. So I had to give him up. It was shameful for me. And to raise a child, I mean, every single mother will know. If there's no finances coming in, girl, you gotta get up and work. So I had 3 jobs. I did boot camp in the morning. I had him in his little carrier. Boot camp in the morning, during the day, full-time job. At night, I used to personal train as well. You know, and that also takes a toll on the children. But
you're not
it was
there.
shameful for me, you know, like not being good enough, because you weren't good enough when you were a little girl. It came from there. It came from, this is not good enough, that is not good enough, and this you will take forward as mothers until you deal with it.
But how, you're a coach now, Michelle.
Yes.
You went from, you know, having this difficult childhood and having 3 jobs here, there, everywhere, to spending quite a long time in corporate, and now you're an NLP coach. And when you say, you know, women will come to you in their 40s once they realize that actually I've been walking around with this anchor holding me back from living out my full life, what are some of the, if you would give 3 pieces of advice to someone who either is thinking of becoming a mom or has just become a mom, to help them deal better with this journey of motherhood, because it is no joke, right? What 3 key pieces of advice would you give from your perspective, not only having lived this experience, but also from your professional perspective?
Yeah, I think it's very important to also look at their childhoods and see if they've got any triggers. And usually our triggers tells us a lot about ourselves. What are you saying when you have a trigger? You know, which situations do you trigger? So I teach people a lot about their triggers, because your trigger is a lesson or your greatest teacher about you going forward. And I also think I was young and dumb when I had a baby, because I had no clue what I was doing. And in today's life, there's so much information. So I would say, take the time to put in information, and also visualize what type of mother you want to be for your child for the future. Visualize what that woman will look like, and what that woman will look like in difficult situations. You know, we're not always going to have it perfect, but if I have to sit now and visualize, and I'm not regretting anything, because I am what I am today, and I'm helping people because of what I've been through. But visualize what type of mother you want to be one day, and how you will pitch up for yourself, not even for your child, but for yourself. Because if you don't put yourself mentally first, everything goes out of the doors. You know, so you've got to start working on yourself mentally and spiritually, because if things go wrong, you know, I remember when I decided to study coaching, I had to give my boy away, because I chose a man, we got engaged, a lot of alcoholism involved again, and I hit rock bottom. I had nothing. I remember I ended up in a mattress, and I had to give my boy away.
What do you mean, give him away?
Well, he had nowhere to live. We had nowhere to live. We had nowhere to go. So I had to say to his dad, you know what, you need to take this boy and you need to look after him until I can get on my feet. So I remember I sat in a hair extension factory on a mattress. At least I had a mattress. When I tell people the story, they're like, Michelle, at least you had a mattress. And, you know, I just looked up to Jesus, and I'm like, here we are again, rock bottom, and this time no baby because I had nothing. I couldn't feed him, I couldn't support him. And it was at that point where my life changed. And I said, right, Michelle, if you don't get up now, how are you going to support your child again? How are you? And I think that is where my turning point was. What was my second rock bottom? It's like, you cannot get up now. And I think it was like I had this calling is, you need to go help other people.
Yeah.
You need to go help other women, help them stand up that goes through the same.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
because on social media, all you see is the good stuff.
Yeah.
And you don't see how people actually battle in motherhood.
Yeah.
And like I say, I started putting my mental health first.
Yeah.
And that is how I started changing, is to keep on working on yourself every day.
Yeah.
You know, keep on journaling. Keep on bringing out the emotions. You know, when I grew up, they used to say, girls need to put their big girl panties on. You know, we were programmed like that, not bringing out the emotion, not talking and
strong.
reaching out.
Yeah.
And it's so important, especially today, for mothers to reach out to someone and say,
Yeah.
I'm going through some stuff. And just to listen. I think it's the biggest gift you can give a mother,
Yeah.
is just to be there and be present and
Yeah.
listen to what they're going through.
Yeah.
I think it's that concept of like we've been programmed that we should be able to do this
Yeah.
by ourselves.
That's the thing.
Like we're not, and so it's not even that we're not programmed to ask for help. It's like we can't ask for help because you're defective if you
It
can't
should
do
be
this.
instinctive.
Exactly, it should be instinctive.
Why aren't you built in with this?
Yes, this like pre-program that you can do it all. You can be the wife, you can be the businesswoman, you can be the provider, you can be the mother, you can be the nurturer, you can do everything. And so, when you're feeling like you can't, whatever circumstances brought into that prevents you from feeling like that, the last thing you actually feel like you can do is ask for help. And I think that's, it speaks so much to in very different ways to both of how our motherhood journey, went through. And I love, like you said, Instagram or social media can be very deceptive. And that's why I say to you, you just have to scroll back a little bit further. But these conversations are so important because you impress people with your success, but you really connect with people through your shared experiences and your weaknesses.
Say that again, girl. Say that again.
And that's where my heart is. And the more I can speak and share, and people often look at me like, no, not you, girl. You weren't always like this. I'm like, no, guys, this is who I wanted to be. That version of myself, that version that shows up, and I still show up for my kids,
Yes.
but in a different way.
Yes.
And they're stronger for it.
Yes. I
so-
love that story you shared about how your younger son, who also has, not also, but he's got social anxiety.
Yeah,
I think.
performance anxiety.
Performance
Yeah.
anxiety, and how, you had been this dedicated mom to both your children, and you entered the Mr. South Africa contest just to I need to get my life. And after seeing you on stage,
Yeah, it turned.
Tell us what he did.
So I think here's the point. Like I said, we've done all the therapies, and everybody's telling me what I should do for the kids, and we're telling them what to do, and we couldn't understand why this child would get such performance anxiety. We're talking ring time, guys. We're not talking like just on the stage, just those Mother's Day,
Yes.
sing for my mommy and
Picnic
granny,
days,
picnic
yes.
days, and he literally, it would physically disable him in a sense, and we could never understand it because both my husband and I are quite comfortable on stage.
Where are you getting this from?
Yeah, where are you getting this from? This is obviously now, I've entered Mrs. South Africa. And funny enough, it was through that coach that I spoke about.
Yeah.
I saw some woman who had entered the Mrs. South Africa pageant and watched their journey for
Yes.
a year. And I saw their transformation. I was like, I want this.
Yes.
I need this.
I'll take one of those. Please.
Yes,
Thank
yes,
you.
yes. Like
Give me 14 of
I
those.
recognized it wasn't just a want; it was a need.
Yeah.
Like I see this. I will be in circles of people who are uplifting, who are driven the same direction. Anyway, very long. Let's fast forward. It was a life-changing experience for
Yeah.
me. It completely changed my perception. I realized I needed to be a model for my children, not just a martyr for my children.
Oh, I love that. I love that.
Quotable quote.
It was just so much. That's a Brené Brown. Let's not take too much credit. That's a Brené Brown quote right there. And one day, it was a Mother's Day breakfast, and I was obviously going to address the audience. There was about 1,000 women in attendance, and my husband had brought my kids, and they were standing at the back, and, I went up there, and I did a beautiful speech for Mother's Day, and I remember coming down and going to my son, and he's like, "Mommy, weren't you scared?" And I said to him, "You know what, my boy, I wasn't scared. Of course I'm nervous. If you're not nervous, then there really is
You're not
something wrong
alive.
with you. I'm saying, are you breathing?" I said, "But I wasn't scared because that speech wasn't for me, and it wasn't about me. It was about the women in the audience. It was about the mothers of the semi-finalists in that audience and connecting with them and showing them what an incredible job they have done, because look at their daughters, look at what they're doing now."
Right.
And so I had this little speech with him. Again, a few weeks later, school says we're having a Mother's Day thing at school, and I'm like, oh no.
Here we go, here we go, here we go,
I've
here
been
we go.
so busy. I haven't briefed the new school that my son cannot get onto stage. Like, this is going to be a disaster. And I'm actually like, I was irritated with myself because I was like, okay, hold on. These whole things about I can do this and Mrs. South Africa at the same time has now fallen short because my son is not going to work. Anyway, I quickly get to the school. I've had hair and makeup done early, 4 o'clock in the morning, because I'm flying to Cape Town after this anyway.
Right.
So there's a lot going on, and I sit in there, and the headmaster's doing a little explanation, and then they do announce that we're going to go to the classrooms. I'm like, oh, thank goodness, I'm saved.
Yeah.
Nothing's going to happen. Next minute, the kids come onto stage, and my heart just drops. Oh, hold on. There he is. He's on stage.
Yeah.
He's got a little sign. He's doing the actions.
He's ready to go.
And I actually, it's only because I've shared the story a few times that I'm not going to just completely break down, but the goosebumps, you can see them. It's just, and he's doing everything, and I'm going, don't cry, because I've got this hair and makeup done, and they're going to kill me. Anyway, so now he gets off the stage, and I'm taking a deep breath because I'm like, what do? I don't want to go to him and be like, I'm so proud.
Yes.
Because I don't want him to feel like he has to do these grand gestures for
gestures
mommy
for you
to be
to
proud of him
validate
right
him.
now. And so I'm trying to navigate this, and suddenly it pops into my head, my boy, wow, weren't you scared? It's exactly what he said to me.
Mirroring.
And he says, oh, okay, but now. He says to me, yeah, Mom, it wasn't about me, it was about you. And in that moment, I was just like,
Wow.
that is, it just reassured everything I'd done in my Mrs. SA journey. And the fact that it is so important to take that time out for yourself, to build yourself, because my kid didn't learn because I told him to be brave.
That's right.
He learned because Mom was brave. Mom did something he'd never seen her do before. And that gave him the confidence to do it.
Yeah.
And so, I am living an incredible, I feel blessed journey right now. And for me, it is just to inspire other women to know that. And again, you mentioned the 40. I entered on 39. I was 40 when I did Mrs. South Africa. And it was a point in my life where I was like, I have to give more, not give more, but be more in me. I have to give more to me so I can be this example for my kids. They
learn by seeing.
Exactly. You can't just be surviving. You've got to be thriving.
I love that.
And
So how do we now, because Shaz, girl,
I got some tools. I definitely got some tools.
I've seen you be an auntie. You would make an amazing mom, okay? And I think from each of you ladies, I want to hear, how would you encourage someone in their motherhood journey not to lose themselves? What do you wish you had known, when becoming a mom, or at that point where you were slipping? Because you don't fall into, I can't recognize myself. You slip into it day by day by day. So Shaz, I'll put you on the spot, since you've been a dog mom, and you're still selfish. I know you're my friend. You're still selfish, Joey. You still leave Chai. You're still like, I'm gonna drive down 6 hours to Durban. Chai's gonna be trained. They know him at that Wimpy at Inton and Bregville, because he will sit there like this.
He is trained.
Does not
He is
move.
absolutely trained.
He is a militant little, Yorkie this big, and he'll sit there like this, like, Chai, I'm coming back now.
No, I think, given what the ladies have discussed today and me being childless, I think something Michelle mentioned about inner child, obviously because I've been through my own traumas, I bought my first Christmas tree in December last year, and I wept because I always had this idea of, what Christmas should be because that's what we were watching. And because I've started to heal my inner child even before I have a child, it lets me know that I'm on the right path so that I don't carry on the traumas that I've had in my past. So thank you for that about healing the inner child. It shows me that, I'm on the right way. And in the same sense of like the things I do now are things that I can show my kids that, hey, I may be your mother, but I'm also a voiceover artist.
Yeah.
And just to touch on what Joe said about being a role model and not a martyr. And actually just yesterday, I recently picked up a new ride and I went to go show my niece that And my cousin texted me last night, I'm gonna cry now, and she said, when I was driving out, she said, Mommy, I wanna drive a car like that one day and I wanna work how Auntie works. And so for me, the fact that those building blocks have already started being in place puts me at ease about being a mother. Because we have a saying in our family that says, if you're gonna be a mother, be prepared to be the main parent of the child. Even if you have a husband or have a thingy, you have to be the person that child will go to irrespective. So the tools and stories you've shared today shows me I'm in the right direction and I feel a little bit better about being a mom. You gotta find a husband first, but but definitely those are, some of the points for me that I think I'll carry with me after today.
We praise Jesus for the husband, and long may he stay, because some of us went down that route, but currently auditioning for husband number 2. So if you feel like we could make it work, please do drop me a DM after this.
Oh dear. I think from my side is that I realized I needed to be kinder to myself. And I actually changed my Instagram, and I think it's still on my WhatsApp. It says there, Josie Mom, kinder to me. And I think that's what we have to realize as mothers, is that there is no right or wrong here. And yes, you can slip, but I think the process of being kinder to yourself, of being forgiving to yourself, I think that I was more of that along the way and less of, not necessarily, I didn't blame myself for things, but I was very hard on myself. I was very like, you should be able to do this. Why are you could run a business, you worked with the UN, why can't you do this? This is easy. And I would say to myself, there are women out there and they're working and they're, and single moms, and why can't I do this? And I think the more you talk yourself down, the less you're capable of doing things. It's that whole thing, and then imposter syndrome comes in, and then you don't believe you're worthy enough to do more, and so you're stuck in the cycle. I think what also is very important is to create that circle of influence. They say you become like the 5 people you spend the most of time with, and there's nothing better as a mother when you're in difficulty than sitting with a pity party of mothers who are feeling the same as you. But because you don't get out. You stay in that then. You're all talking the same things. Oh, it's so tough, it's so hard, it's so this, school is this, the headmaster is this, the teacher's that. I hate parent groups at schools. I refuse to be on them now. I've been down that road and I realized that it's toxic and it's bad for my mental health and it's bad for my space. And so I stay away from those now. And I really have chosen the woman I sit with and the tables I go to, because that has improved me, and because of that I can help other women. And then to realize when you do have a husband, that he is very capable of doing more than what you think.
Listen.
And that was one of my mistakes as well, is not giving him the credit and the space to do those things. And partly ego, partly control, controlling, etc., partly not wanting to ask for help. So it's a whole bunch of things if you look at it. And again, if you look back at our childhood, I can see those traits in my life. I can see where it came from with my grandmother being an orphan, etc., and not giving my husband the space for him to be that father and take over and sort lunch boxes and do these things. I left him for a week with the kids' lunch boxes. I came back, the kids were making their own lunch boxes. I was like,
excuse me, Mom, they can do it themselves.
Exactly. And at very first, I was almost irritated with him. But I was like, why are you irritated with him? They're not
He found a solution. He outsourced.
Exactly. And I thought, and I haven't made a lunchbox since. And so, I think it's a series of that, and it goes along to healing Yeah, and having that group of women who are watching you, they've got your back, and saying, we can see a change in you. One big thing for me was when I bumped into my old boss when I was in my early 20s. And like I said, I was head of a department. I was the youngest person in the company to be in the management position. And I was busy telling her, I was so excited. And I was like, oh yeah, I've been to the Mrs. SA and I found myself and all of these things. And she said, stop, I need you to stop. I cannot imagine a world where the Joe I knew at 23 was not successful and had it all going and knew exactly. So this woman you're telling me about that was lost and stranger, that is a complete stranger to me. And so she's like, I'm so glad you found her again, but I cannot picture this 10-year gap in your life from the woman I knew. And I realized at that point I maybe needed more women who I had in that circle who would be like, oh, come back, girl.
Yes.
Like, we can see you slipping.
Yes.
So that would be my summary of, most importantly, the kindest person you need to be to is yourself.
Oh, so true, so true. Michelle?
So I think, it's important not to blame our parents for what they've done to us. So forgiveness is really, really so essential. And it was really hard for me to rather say, oh, but I was raised like this, or oh, I didn't have a father, and play the victim. And especially when you're a young mother now, playing the victim. Our parents only did what they knew for us. Doesn't matter if it was violent or abusive or whatever. They did what they did because that's the way they've been raised. And I think it's up to us to change that, to say, I'm not going to be that mother. And the day my son was born, I said, I will not be this mother for you. I want to be a better mother. And I think as a mother, we need to say that I am doing everything I can. And let that settle and be okay with that. Because if I look at being a young mother, I was never enough for him. I always wanted to do more for him. And I felt sorry for him, Just know that today is enough. And also not to be so hard on yourself. If you're doing everything you can for your child, then let that settle. And I believe God puts us in the right space, in the right time, for the right reasons. And when I look back as a young mother, I never understood when those things happened to me. But now if I look back, and my son's 24, I knew exactly where God has put me and why He's put me there. And at the time it doesn't feel like that, but there's a reason. There's a reason going through those things as mothers, to help others, to help others that goes through that. And my son is 24 now. He's actually studying to become a pastor.
Okay.
And we've got this relationship now. We actually now have the mom-son relationship. And we can be open to each other, and I could say to him, I call him dude.
Hey, dude.
Because some people sometimes think I'm his sister, and I say, dude, what could I have done better for you as a mom?
Oh.
And he's like, Mom, you were always working, but you were never there emotionally for me. And we are now working on that mom-son emotional level, because I just couldn't, sometimes you just can't do it, and now we've changed the tables around, and now we are working on that part. So nothing will ever be 100% in motherhood, but it's building that relationship with your children as well, and having that openness towards them, and not feeling the regret and, oh, I'm sorry I could have, being open with each other. And you're a mother too. I mean, these things. Our kids are, growing up. And I think the most important part is, people always say, oh, but I can't. I've got 3 children. I've got a baby. I can't, I can't. Just become still within yourself. Just become still and spend 10 minutes a day. It's all it takes just to work on your mental health.
Yeah.
Like I always say to mothers, mental health must come first before anything, even if it takes 10 minutes. Work on yourself, work on your mental health, because that will help you with resilience and endurance going forward.
And ensuring that you are the mom your child needs, and not the mom that is responding to the voice of trauma inside you.
And the seasons as well. I think that's what, you know, like just hearing now, you have a different relationship with your son now. And I think that's something that's also just a gift to a woman to know out there. It doesn't matter what season you're in now.
Yes.
They come, they go, they ebb, they flow.
Yes.
And you will get through it, and it will change.
Yes.
And you will enter a new season that you're even more unprepared for.
Yes.
Man, I remember those days in Checkers.
And one of my favorite quotes says, it's never too late to have a good childhood. And so, moms, as you are mothering your children, what I'm hearing from you is also mother the inner child. You know, give yourself that beautiful childhood. You deserve it. Ladies, our time is up. I know you're getting ready to introduce a new topic, but our time is up. It's been an absolute pleasure just growing closer to you. You know, Michelle, we met on LinkedIn. Josie, as I said, at an event. Joe, we met at an event. Shaz, we met through a friend. And it's just been so uplifting, you know, stepping into this new season in my life where I'm like, you know, Samke, show up for Samke. Not for your parents, not because your dad wanted you to be, not because your husband, your mom, for Samke. And it's so beautiful to come into community with women that are headed in the same direction in terms of values, in terms of, you know, showing up as their best selves in all areres of their lives. So I just want to thank and honor you for having this conversation.
Thank you to my future babies.
Listen. I'm preparing my boys for their future wives. So I'm not raising boys. I'm raising gentlemen.
Yay!
That's my goal. But I think thank you for the opportunity, and just the way we met just shows everybody that opportunities are waiting for you out there.
Yeah.
Look how we've all connected today.
Yeah.
And be prepared. So show up for yourself and show up for your next opportunity. You don't know what it's going to lead you to.